Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dalaran, and in today's video, we'll be doing a video for the 5 best melee specs for patch 8.2 in BFA. Now, you guys know me, I generally like to play the specs that I personally enjoy, whether it is a playstyle that I like, or simply the theme behind the spec. And most of you guys know I'm very much off meta, but today we'll be doing a slightly different video. We'll be talking about the best melee specs for player versus player in BFA for the patch 8.2. A lot of you guys keep asking me, whether on streams or videos, what are the best specs to play, what would you recommend? Now, what I recommend is for you all to play the spec or the class that you like. Play whatever you enjoy, because that's going to be the best way to enjoy World of Warcraft, whether you do PvE or PvP. Just play whatever you like. But for this video, to pick out the best 5 melee specs in the game right now, we are going to be taking a look at the popularity of some of the specs when it comes to primarily arenas. Arenas actually have graphs we can take a look at to see what everybody's playing, compared to things like Battlegrounds, which more people play Battlegrounds than arenas, but in Battlegrounds we don't have the same data, so there might be some specs on this list that you might think, oh, that won't really work as well in BGs, but within arenas, these are some of the better specs that most people end up pushing rating with. So let's get into the video. This video list isn't exactly the best to worst type of deal, it's just the top 5 that are the most played. So we'll simply start in alphabetical order with Death Knights. Unholy Death Knight has to be put on this list. If you've ever been to our 5v1 duels, you have seen just how powerful these guys can be. A major advantage to Unholy Death Knights is simply the high damage output. Between the damage over time effects that you put up on enemies with your diseases, as well as the massive damage that the army of your undead minions can bring, countless times in our duels for 5v1s, we've seen Death Knights completely demolish people in a single burst with all their minions up. Another thing Death Knights are really good for is a bit of utility. Between a stun that they can spec into, being able to steal enemy spells if you are lucky or skilled with the spec, ranged interrupt, your pet that can leap over to interrupt enemies and stun them, as well as a spammable slow, which definitely engulfs more of fluidity as well as feeling of control when you play your Unholy Death Knight. You also got to talk about Death Knight's self-survivability. I mean, the amount of death strikes they can put out, especially during transfusion, which is a very short cooldown that allows them a reduced runic power cost on death strikes and being able to fuel them with more runic power. You can just spam out death strikes and heal through any form of damage. That combined with powerful defensive cooldowns like Anti-Magic Shell, IBF, or if you want to talent into Lichborn to have even more uses for it, Lichborn has a nice combo with an Azeroth trait, which gives you quite a lot of healing during Lichborn, and with Lichborn being a 1-minute cooldown, it gives you quite a lot of healing almost on demand. That combined with the necrotic mechanic makes it an absolute nightmare for healers to recover from, where Death Knights don't really go for big damage themselves. Instead, they can actually absorb future healing for an ally. So when you combine a Death Knight with another powerful melee DPS to cleave together on one target, that melee is going to chunk out their health while you're preventing future healing, putting them in a near sentence. Death Knights have to be on this list as a melee, they're just way too strong not to put them in. Then there's Havoc Demon Hunter. With how good Demon Hunters have been and how consistent they've been throughout all of Legion and so far all of BFA, if you guys are ever looking for a reliable class that will almost never get nerfed, Demon Hunter should definitely be on your radar. This spec of Demon Hunter with Havoc being one of the more mobile classes in the game, with Glide, Fell Rush, Vengeful Retreat, as well as Metamorphosis to leap across a battlefield or an arena. Demon Hunters also have very great damage, whether it is sustained damage or burst damage. Whenever you get some sort of a lineup with a wombo combo between your stuns, the I-Beam, Blade Dance, a couple annihilates, you can definitely guarantee some crazy numbers on any enemy you encounter. Demon Hunter is also insane in the utility they bring into an arena, which is why a lot of players like to play with a Demon Hunter. Darkness provides an amazing group cooldown in order to prevent, hopefully, some damage, since there's a bit of RNG to the ability. But besides that, abilities like Imprison, Chaos Nova, Spectral Sight to sniff out rogues, Disrupt, which lets you not only interrupt a spell but also gain resources for it, as well as Imprison to stop enemies in their tracks, as well as the ability to burn your enemy healer's mana, which can definitely set you ahead in certain matchups. But the best part about Demon Hunter is a simple DPS rotation. Now I know everybody wants to play the spec with the most complicated rotation with the craziest setup, but Demon Hunters are simple to begin with. It's a great spec for new players in World of Warcraft, but also a great spec for people that are just getting their entry into World of Warcraft PvP. It's also awesome because you don't have to really worry about your rotation too much since it's not too complicated, allowing you for better things like positioning, mobility, and overall spatial awareness, whether it might be a hectic battleground or a focused arena. Next on the alphabetical order is going to be the Windwalker Monk. Out of all the classes we've seen in the 5.5.1 duels, definitely in the top 5 I would have to put Windwalkers in there. While this class has been shaky at the beginning of BFA, it definitely grew into a much more powerful competitor in 8.2. Monks have incredible damage, and that's one of the things that a lot of the melee classes on this list are gonna have. Monks, in particular, are really good at either single target or cleaving without having to sacrifice one or the other. If there's ever an opportunity to put two players next to one another, the monk is simply just going to do more damage, while some of the other specs might be more about focusing that one target. One of the things that differentiates monks from other specs is the consistency of their damage, which can definitely not be understated. Monks have incredible mobility, and for some players, it actually might be better mobility than that of a Demon Hunter. Between two rolls, a flying serpent kick that can take you from one side of the arena to the other, Tiger's Lust that you can talent into to free you or an ally out of a movement impairing effect or a root, as well as Transcendence, which literally lets you teleport to a preset location. You also bring in plenty into an arena with Tiger's Lust, which we talked about, Paralysis to land a CC, Leg Sweep to stun multiple enemies next to one another, as well as a grapple weapon to disarm an opponent. Monks also have a really good setup for self-heals. If you can ever break line of sight with the enemy and get yourself a bit of healing with Vivify, you can get your health back up and caught up fairly easily, making them a very good class for any 1v1 situations. But if your healer, for example, just cannot provide you any self-heals, at least you're self-reliable. And of course, we gotta talk about rogues. Not because I'm a rogue main and I do love rogues, but rogues have definitely shown themselves to be one of the stronger melees in PvP with all of BFA. And in this video, we'll be highlighting Assassination rogues, which is not my personal choice of a rogue spec to play as an Outlaw main, but Assassination definitely slaps. One of the advantages of Assassination, like every other melee so far, is the high damage output. It seems that the top melee are the ones that do the most amount of damage with the most amount of ease. Assassination can focus on either trucking down one singular enemy or spreading your bleeds all over the enemy team, which creates even more pressure on the healers as well as the DPS. That, combined with powerful cooldowns during your Vendetta, which is on a fairly short cooldown, really forces a lot of pressure out of the enemy team, whether through trinkets or cooldowns. But once all those trinkets and cooldowns have been exhausted, then that's a secure kill for Assassination rogues in most arena situations. Assassination rogues focus more on the crowd control aspect than all the other melee in this list, with Blind, Corrode, Sap, and Kidney Shot being some of your abilities that you would utilize in order to score kills. Assassination rogues also, like Windwalkers and one more class on this list, bring a Mortal Strike effect to the team play, as in whatever target they're sitting on, and as long as they are free to spread their poisons, they will reduce enemies' health regeneration by quite a bit. When spec'd into the talent of Master Poisoner, your wound poison healing reduction is going to be as high as 30%, which is really important, especially as most arenas play into the high dampening. While Rogue isn't a class that heals themselves, they do have some really powerful defensive cooldowns that need to be used during the right time, because if used frivolously, might leave you very much exposed to melee as well as casters. Finally, we have the Arms Warrior. Told you guys there was another class on this list that used a Mortal Strike mechanic. While for me personally, the fast-paced playstyle of a Fury Warrior is something that I enjoy, Arms Warriors definitely is one of the stronger melee when it comes to PvP. This class, in terms of damage, with your mastery for bleeds that you can put up, Mortal Strike that comes with a healing reduction effect, Overpower, and the Colossus Smash, which can transform with a talent into Warbreaker, allows Arms Warriors probably the best way to do DPS. You have powerful bleeds, you have great cleave, you have great AoE, lots of pressure, consistent damage, great damage on your auto attacks, which will really just force enemy healers into the backline. All of your damage and your cooldowns are on a very short CD, which allows you a lot of pressure and a lot more uptime on your big damage and abilities. The only thing that this class on this list from all the melee doesn't have is going to be survivability. There is absolutely zero possibility for you to maintain your health, while you do have great cooldowns to deal with different situations. So while other specs might be a little bit more towards mobility, which Arms has a fair amount of mobility, while other specs might be more focused on CC or utility, which Arms has some of it as well, Arms' focus is primarily on the damage output. But it still is a plate class, ironclad in armor, so breaking through the armor, especially for other melee, is going to be quite difficult. So while the idea of being reliant on a healer might scare some players, in 2v2s and 3v3s you always have a dedicated healer to maintain the Arms Warrior, allowing them to forego most defensive plays and simply unshackle the ungodly amount of damage that they offer. And that's going to be my list for 5 best melee classes in arenas right now in patch 8.2. Now there are a couple specs that I didn't mention. I honestly feel that Feral Druids are really not bad, particularly in duels, but they're not really seeing a lot of high level play. Survival Hunter is another great and awesome spec for PvP when it comes to melee classes as a hunter, and it is actually one of the better specs when it comes to PvP for all of the hunter class. You're just not seeing nearly as many Survival Hunters as you do Arms Warriors, Assassination Rogues, Demon Hunters, and so on, the other classes mentioned in this video. Let's not also forget Retribution Paladins. They're awesome. There's no bad melee in the game right now, maybe besides for like a Frost Death Knight that's really good in some situations, just not consistently good in all situations. But in the end, you guys should just play whatever spec you like, whatever class you like, and not let any of these kind of lists or top tier specs that are played in arenas stop you from enjoying the game any way you want to. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you guys enjoyed, as a lot of you guys have been asking me what is the best class in X, range, melee, caster, healer, and whatnot. And I might do a video for every single one of them. I guess time will tell. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see all of you in another video.